sunshine of the genial spring weather called their occupants out into the grounds. Even when that weather was broken and continuous rain set in for some days, no damp seemed cast over enjoyment. Indoor amusements only became more lively and varied in consequence of the stop put to outdoor gaiety. Meantime, while I thought only of my master and Miss Ingram, saw only them, heard only their discourse, and considered only their movements of importance, the rest of the party were occupied with their own separate interests and pleasures. The ladies Lynn and Ingram continued to consort in solemn conferences, where they nodded their two turbans at each other and held up their forehands in confronting gestures of surprise, of mystery, or horror, according to the theme on which their gossip ran, like a pair of magnified puppets. Mild Mrs. Dent talked with good-natured Mrs. Eshton, and the two sometimes bestowed a courteous word or smile on me. Sir George Lynn, Colonel Dent, and Mr. Eshton discussed politics, or county affairs, or justice business. Lord Ingram flirted with Amy Eshton. Louisa played and sang to and with one of the Messrs. Lynn, and Mary Ingram listened languidly to the gallant speeches of the other. Sometimes all, as with one consent, suspended their by-play to observe and listen to the principal actors, for, after all, Mr. Rochester, and, because closely connected with him, Miss Ingram, were the life and soul of the party. If he was absent from the room an hour, a perceptible dullness seemed to steal over the spirits of his guests. His re-entrance was sure to give a fresh impulse to the vivacity of conversation. The want of his animating influence appeared to be peculiarly felt one day that he had been summoned to Millcote on business, and was not likely to return till late. The afternoon was wet. A walk the party had proposed to take to see a gypsy camp, lately pitched on a common beyond Hay, was consequently deferred. Some of the gentlemen were gone to the stables. The younger ones, together with the younger ladies, were playing billiards in the billiard room. The dowagers Ingram and Lynn sought solace in a quiet game at cards. Blanche Ingram, after having repelled by supercilious taciturnity some efforts of Mrs. Dent and Mrs. Eshton to draw her into conversation, at first murmured over some sentimental tunes and airs on the piano, and then, having fetched a novel from the library, had flung herself haughty, listless on a sofa, and prepared to beguile, by the spell of fiction, the tedious hours of absence. The room and the house were silent. Only now and then the merriment of the billiard players were heard from above. It was verging on dusk, and the clock had already given warning of the hour to dress for dinner, when little Adele, who knelt by me in the drawing-room window seat, suddenly exclaimed, "Voilà, Monsieur Rochester, qui revient." I turned, and Miss Ingram darted forward from her sofa. The others, too, looked up from their several occupations, for, at the same time, a crunching of wheels and a splashing tramp of horse hoofs became audible on the wet gravel. A post-chaise was approaching. "What can possess him to come home in that style?" said Miss Ingram. "He rode Miss Roar, the black horse, did he not, when he went out, and Pilot was with him? What has he done with the animals?" As she said this, she approached her tall person and ample garments so near the window that I was obliged to bend back almost to the breaking of my spine. In her eagerness, she did not observe me at first, but when she did, she curled her lip and moved presume so far on old and intimate acquaintance as to install myself here till he returns. His manner was polite. His accent in speaking struck me as being somewhat unusual, not precisely foreign, but still not altogether English. His age might be about Mr. Rochester's, between 30 and 40. His complexion was singularly sallow. Otherwise, he was a fine-looking man, at first sight especially. The sound of the dressing bell dispersed the party. It was not till after dinner that I saw him again. He then seemed quite at ease, but I liked his physiognomy even less than before. It struck me as being, at the same time, unsettled and inanimate. His eye wandered, and had no meaning in its wandering. This gave him an odd look, such as I never remembered to have seen. For a handsome and not an unamiable looking man, he repelled me exceedingly. He had spoken of Mr. Rochester as an old friend. A curious friendship theirs must have been. A pointed illustration, indeed, of the old adage that extremes meet. 2 or 3 of the gentlemen sat near him, and I caught at times scraps of their conversation across the room, and I presently gathered that the newcomer was called Mr. Mason. Then I learned that he was but just arrived in England, and that he came from some hot country, which was the reason, doubtless, his face was so sallow, and that he sat so near the hearth, and wore a surtout in the house. Presently, the words Jamaica, Kingston, Spanish Town indicated the West Indies as his residence, and it was with no little surprise I gathered, ere long, that he had there first seen and become acquainted with Mr. Rochester. I was pondering these things when an incident, and a somewhat unexpected one, broke the thread of my musings. Mr. Mason, shivering as someone chanced to open the door, asked for more coal to be put on the fire, which had burned out its flame, though its mass of cinder still shone hot and red. The footman who brought the coal in going out stopped near Mr. Ashton's chair, and said something to him in a low voice, of which I heard only the words, "Old woman, quite troublesome." "Tell her she shall be put in the stocks, if she does not take herself off," replied the magistrate. "No, stop," interrupted Colonel Dent. "Don't send her away, Ashton. We might turn the thing to account. Better consult the ladies." And, speaking aloud, he continued, "Ladies, if you talked of going to Hay Common to visit the gipsy camp, Sam here says that one of the old Mother Bunches is in the servants' hall at this moment, and insists upon being brought in here before the quality to tell them their fortunes. Would you like to see her?" "Surely, Colonel," cried Lady Ingram, "you would not encourage such a low impostor. Dismiss her, by all means, at once." "But I cannot persuade her to go away, my lady," said the footman, "nor can any of the servants. Mrs. Fairfax is with her just now, entreating her to be gone, but she has taken a chair in the chimney corner, and says nothing shall stir her from it till she gets leave to come in here." "What does she want?" asked Mrs. Ashton. "To tell the gentry their fortunes, she says, ma'am, and she swears she must and will do it." "I cannot possibly countenance any such inconsistent proceeding," joined the Dowager Ingram. "Indeed, mamma, but you can and will," pronounced the haughty voice of Blanche, as she turned round on the piano stool, where till now she had sat silent, apparently examining sundry sheets of music. "I have a curiosity to hear my fortune told. must show her into a room by herself, and then those who wish to consult her must go to her one by one. You see now, my queenly Blanche, began Lady Ingram. She encroaches. Be advised, my angel girl, and show her into the library, of course, cut in the angel girl. It is not my mission to listen to her before the vulgar herd either. I mean to have her all to myself. Is there a fire in the library? Yes, ma'am, but she looks such a tinkler. Cease that chatter, blockhead, and do my bidding. Again Sam vanished, and mystery, animation, expectation rose to full flow once more. She's ready now, said the footman, as he reappeared. She wishes to know who will be her first visitor. I think I had better just look in upon her before any of the ladies go, said Colonel Dent. Tell her, Sam, a gentleman is coming. Sam went and returned. She says, sir, that she'll have no gentleman. They need not trouble themselves to come near her. Nor, he added with difficulty, suppressing a titter, any ladies either, except the young and single. By Jove, she has taste, exclaimed Henry Lynn. Miss Ingram rose solemnly. I go first, she said, in a tone which might have befitted the leader of a forlorn hope, mounting a breach in the van of his men. Oh, my best, oh, my dearest, pause, reflect, was her mamma's cry. But she swept past her in a stately silence, passed through the door which Colonel Dent held open, and we heard her enter the library. A comparative silence ensued. Lady Ingram thought it legace to wring her hands, which she did accordingly. Miss Mary declared she felt, for her part, she never dared venture. Amy and Louisa Eshton tittered under their breath, and looked a little frightened. The minutes passed very slowly. 15 were counted before the library door opened again. Miss Ingram returned to us through the arch. Would she laugh? Would she take it as a joke? All eyes met her with a glance of eager curiosity, and she met all eyes with one of rebuff and coldness. She looked neither flurried nor merry. She walked stiffly to her seat and took it in silence. Well, Blanche, said Lord Ingram. What did she say, sister? Asked Mary. What did you think? How do you feel? Is she a real fortune-teller? Demanded the Mrs. Eshton. Now, good people, returned Miss Ingram. Don't press upon me. Really, your organs of wonder and credulity are easily excited. You seem, by the importance you all, my good mamma included, ascribe to this matter, absolutely to believe we have a genuine witch in the house, who is in close alliance with the old gentleman. I have seen a gypsy vagabond. She has practised in hackneyed fashion the science of palmistry, and told me what such people usually tell. My whim is gratified, and now I think Mr. Eshton will do well to put the hag in the stocks tomorrow morning, as he threatened. Miss Ingram took a book, leaned back in her chair, and so declined further conversation. I watched her for nearly half an hour. During all that time she never turned a page, and her face grew momentarily darker, more dissatisfied, and more sourly expressive of disappointment. She had obviously not heard anything to her advantage, and it seemed to me, from her prolonged fit of gloom and taciturinity, that she herself, notwithstanding her professed indifference, attached undue importance to whatever revelations had been made her. Meantime, Mary Ingram, Amy, and Louisa Eshton declared they dared not go alone, and yet they all wished to go. A negotiation was opened through the medium of the ambassador Sam, and after much pacing to and fro, till, I think, the stood so still as missing from said bin. We heard hysterical giggling and little shrieks proceeding from the library, and at the end of about 20 minutes, they burst the door open and came running across the hall, as if they were half scared out of their wits. "I am sure she is something not right," they cried, one and all. "She told us such things. She knows all about us." And they sank, breathless, into the various seats the gentleman hastened to bring them. Pressed for further explanations, they declared that she had told them of things they had said and done when they were mere children, described books and ornaments they had in their boudoirs at home, keepsakes that different relations had presented to them. They affirmed that she had even divined their thoughts, and had whispered in the ear of each the name of the person she liked best in the world, and informed them of what they most wished for. In the midst of the tumult, and while my eyes and ears were fully engaged in the scene before me, I heard a hem close on my elbow. I turned and saw Sam. "If you please, miss, the gypsy declares that there is another young single lady in the room who has not been to see her yet, and she swears she will not go till she has seen all. I thought it must be you. There is no one else for it. What shall I tell her?" "Oh, I will go by all means," I answered, and I was glad of the unexpected opportunity to gratify my much excited curiosity. I slipped out of the room, unobserved by any eye, for the company were gathered in one mass about the trembling trio, just returned, and I closed the door quietly behind me. "If you like, miss," said Sam, "I'll wait in the hall for you. If she frightens you, just call, and I'll come in." "No, Sam, return to the kitchen. I am not the least afraid." Nor was I, but I was a good deal interested and excited. Chapter 18. The library looked tranquil enough as I entered it, and the Sybil, if Sybil she were, was seated snugly enough in an easy chair at the chimney corner. She had on a red cloak and a black bonnet, or rather, a broad-brimmed gypsy hat tied down with a striped handkerchief under the chin. An extinguished candle stood on the table. She was bending over the fire and seemed reading in a little black book, like a prayer book, by the light of the blaze. She muttered the words to herself, as most old women do, while she read. She did not desist immediately on my entrance. It appeared she wished to finish a paragraph. I stood on the rug and warmed my hands, which were rather cold, with sitting at a distance from the drawing-room fire. I felt now as composed as ever I did in my life. There was nothing indeed in the gypsy's appearance to trouble one's calm. She shut her book and slowly looked up. Her hat brim partially shaded her face, yet I could see, as she raised it, that it was a strange one. It looked all brown and black. Elf locks bristled out from beneath a white band, which passed under her chin and came half over her cheeks, or rather jaws. Her eyes confronted me at once with a bold and direct gaze. "Well, and you want your fortune to hold," she said, in a voice as decided as her glance, as harsh as her features. "I don't care about it, mother. You may please yourself. But I ought to warn you, I have no faith." "It's like your impudence to say so. I expected it of you. I heard it in your steps as you crossed the threshold. Why don't you tremble? I'm not cold. Why don't you turn pale? I am not sick. Why don't you consult my art? I'm not silly. You are cold. You are sick. You are silly. Prove it," I rejoined. "I will in a few words. You are cold because you are alone. No contact strikes the fire from you that is in you. You are sick before you? Is there not one face you study? One figure whose movements you follow with at least curiosity? I like to observe all the faces and all the figures. But do you never single one from the rest? Or it may be two. I do frequently, when the gestures or looks of a pair seem telling a tale. It amuses me to watch them. What tale do you like best to hear? Oh, I have not much choice. They generally run on the same theme, courtship, and promise to end in the same catastrophe, marriage. And do you like that monotonous theme? Positively, I don't care about it. It is nothing to me. Nothing to you. When a lady, young and full of life and health, charming with beauty, and endowed with the gifts of rank and fortune, sits and smiles in the eyes of a gentleman you know, and perhaps think well of. I don't know the gentlemen here. I have scarcely interchanged a syllable with one of them, and as to thinking well of them, I consider some respectable and stately and middle-aged, and others young, dashing, handsome, and lively. But certainly they are all at liberty to be the recipients of whose smiles they please, without any feeling disposed to consider the transaction of any moment to me. You don't know the gentlemen here. You've not exchanged a syllable with one of them. Will you say that of the master of the house? He is not at home. A profound remark, a most ingenious quibble. He went to Millcote this morning, and will be back here tonight or tomorrow. Does that circumstance exclude him from the list of your acquaintance? Blot him, as it were, out of existence? No, but I can scarcely see what Mr. Rochester has to do with the theme you had introduced. I was talking of ladies smiling in the eyes of gentlemen, and of late so many smiles have been shed into Mr. Rochester's eyes that they overflow like 2 cups filled above the brim. Have you never remarked that? Mr. Rochester has a right to enjoy the society of his guests. No question about his right, but have you never observed that, of all the tales told here about matrimony, Mr. Rochester has been favoured with the most lively and the most continuous? I said nothing. You have seen love, have you not? And, looking forward, you have seen him married, and beheld his bride happy. Humph, not exactly. Your witch's skill is rather at fault sometimes. What the devil have you seen then? Never mind. I came here to inquire, not to confess. Is it known that Mr. Rochester is to be married? Yes, and to the beautiful Miss Ingram, shortly. Appearances would warrant that conclusion, and no doubt, though with an audacity that wants chastising out of you, you seem to question it. They will be a superlatively happy pair. He must love such a handsome, noble, witty, accomplished lady, and probably she loves him, or, if not his person, at least his purse. I know she considers the Rochester estate eligible to the last degree, though, God pardon me, I told her something on that point about an hour ago, which made her look wondrous grave. The corners of her mouth fell half an inch. I would have advised her black-avised suitor to look out if another comes with a longer or clearer rent roll. He's dished. But, mother, I did not come to hear Mr. Rochester's fortune. I came to hear my own, and you have told me nothing of it. Your fortune is yet doubtful. When I examined your face, one trait contradicted another. Chance has meted you a measure of happiness. That I know. I knew it before I came here this evening. She has laid it carefully on one side for you. I saw her do it. It depends on yourself to stretch out your hand and take it up. But whether you will do so is the problem I study. Kneel again on the rug. Don't keep me long. The scorches me. I note she did not stoop towards me, but only gazed, leaning back in her chair. She began muttering. The flame flickers in the eye shines like dew. It looks soft and full of feeling. It smiles at my jargon. It is susceptible. Impression follows. Impression through its clear sphere, where it ceases to smile. It is sad. An unconscious lassitude weighs on the lid that signifies melancholy, resulting from loneliness. As to the mouth, it delights at times in laughter. It is disposed to impart all that the brain conceives, though I dare say it would be silent on much the heart experiences. I see no enemy to a fortunate issue but in the brow, and that brow professes to say, I can live alone if self-respect and circumstance require me to do. The forehead declares, reason sits firm and holds the reins, and she will not let the feelings burst away and hurry her to wild chasms. The passions may rage furiously, like true heathens as they are, and the desires may imagine all sorts of vain things, but judgment shall still have the last word in every argument, and the casting vote in every decision. Well said, forehead. Your declaration shall be respected. I have formed my plans. Right plans I deem them, and in them I have attended to the claims of conscience and the counsel of reason. I know how soon youth would fade and bloom, perish if, in the cup of bliss offered, but one drag of shame or one flavour of remorse were detected. And I do not want sacrifice, sorrow, disillusion. Such is not my taste. I wish to foster, not to blight, to earn gratitude, not to drink tears of blood, no, nor of brine. My harvest must be in smiles, in endearments, in sweet. That will do. I think I rave in a kind of exquisite delirium. I should wish now to protract this moment ad infinitum, but I dare not. So far I have covered myself thoroughly. I have acted as I inwardly swore I would act, but further might try me beyond my strength. Rise, Miss Eyre, leave me. The play is played out. Where was I? Did I wake or sleep? Had I been dreaming? Did I dream still? The old woman's voice had changed, her accent, her gesture, and all were familiar to me as my own face in a glass, as the speech of my own tongue. I got up, but did not go. I looked, I stirred the fire, and looked again, but she drew her bonnet and her bandage closer about her face, and again beckoned me to depart. The flame illuminated her hand, stretched out, roused down, and on the alert for discoveries. I at once noticed that hand. It was no more the withered limb of an eld than my own. It was a rounded, supple member, with smooth fingers, symmetrically turned. A broad ring flashed on the little finger, and, stooping forward, I had looked at it and saw a gem I had seen 100 times before. Again, I looked at the face, which was no longer turned from me. On the contrary, the bonnet was doffed, the bandage displaced, the head advanced. Well, Jane, do you know me? Asked the familiar voice. Only take off the red cloak, sir, and then... But the string is in a knot. Help me. Break it, sir. There then, off you landings. And Mr. Rochester stepped out of his disguise. Now, sir, what a strange idea. But well carried out, eh? Don't you think so? With the ladies you must have managed well, but not with you. You did not act the character of a gypsy with me. What character did I act? My own? No, some unaccountable one. In short, I believe you have been trying to features. But my mind had been running on Grace Poole, that living enigma, that mystery of mysteries, as I considered her. I had never thought of Mr. Rochester. "Well," said he, "what are you musing about? What does that grave smile signify?" "Wonder and self-congratulation, sir. I have your permission to retire now, I suppose." "No, stay a moment, and tell me what the people in the drawing-room yonder are doing." "Discussing the gypsy, I dare say." "Sit down. Let me hear what they said about me." "I'd better not stay long, sir. It must be near 11 o'clock. Oh, are you aware, Mr. Rochester, that a stranger has arrived here since you left this morning?" "A stranger? No. Who can it be? I expected no one. Is he gone?" "No. He said he had known you long, and that he could take the liberty of installing himself here till you returned." "The devil he did! Did he give his name?" "His name is Mason, sir, and he comes from the West Indies, from Spanish Town, in Jamaica, I think." Mr. Rochester was standing near me. He had taken my hand, as if to lead me to a chair. As I spoke, he gave my wrist a convulsive grip. The smile on his lips froze. Apparently a spasm caught his breath. "Mason, the West Indies," he said in a tone one might fancy a speaking automation to announce its single words. "Mason, the West Indies," he reiterated, and he went over the syllables 3 times, growing in intervals of speaking, whiter than ashes. He hardly seemed to know what he was doing. "Do you feel ill, sir?" I inquired. "Jane, I've got a blow, Jane," he staggered. "Oh, lean on me, sir." "Jane, you offered me your shoulder once before. Let me have it now." "Yes, sir, yes, and my arm." He sat down and made me sit beside him. Holding my hand in his own, he chafed it, gazing on me at the same time with a most troubled and dreary look. "My little friend," said he, "I wish I were in a quiet island, with only you, and trouble, and danger, and hideous recollections removed from me. Can I help you, sir? I'd give you my life to serve you. Jane, if aid is wanted, I'll seek it at your hands. I promise you that." "Thank you, sir. Tell me what to do. I'll try at least to do it." "Fetch me now, Jane, a glass of wine from the dining room. They will be at supper there, and tell me if Mason is with them, and what he is doing." I went. I found all the party in the dining room at supper, as Mr. Rochester had said. They were not seated at table. The supper was arranged on the sideboard. Each had taken what he chose, and they stood about here and there in groups, their plates and glasses in their hands. Everyone seemed in high glee. Laughter and conversation were general and animated. Mr. Mason stood near the fire, talking to Colonel and Mrs. Dent, and appeared as merry as any of them. I filled a wine glass. I saw Miss Ingram watch me frowningly as I did so. She thought I was taking a liberty, I dare say, and I returned to the library. Mr. Rochester's extreme pallor had disappeared, and he looked once more firm and stern. He took the glass from my hand. "Here is to your health, minstrant spirit," he said. He swallowed the contents and returned it to me. "What are they doing, Jane?" "Laughing and talking, sir. They don't look grave and mysterious, as if they had heard something strange. Not at all. They are full of jests and gaiety. And Mason, he was laughing too. If all those people came in a body and spat at me, what would you do, Jane?" "Turn them out of the room, sir, if I could." He half smiled. "But if I were to go among to them, and they only looked at me coldly, and whispered sneeringly amongst each other, and then dropped off and left me one by one, what then? Would you go with them?" "I rather think not, sir. I should have more pleasure in staying with you. To comfort me? Yes, sir, to comfort you, as well as I could. And if they laid you under a ban for adhering to me, I probably should know nothing about their ban, and if I did, I should care nothing about it. Then you could dare censor for my sake. I could dare it for the sake of any friend who deserved my adherence, as you, I am sure, do. Go back now into the room, step quietly up to Mason, and whisper in his ear that Mr. Rochester is come and wishes to see him. Show him in here, and then leave me. Yes, sir. I did his behest. The company all stared at me as I passed straight among them. I sought Mr. Mason, delivered the message, and preceded him from the room. I ushered him into the library, and then I went upstairs. At a late hour, after I had been in bed some time, I heard the visitors repair to their chambers. I distinguished Mr. Rochester's voice, and heard him say, "This way, Mason. This is your room." He spoke cheerfully. The gay tones set my heart at ease. I was soon asleep.